Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today let's discuss the important performance testing frequently asked interview questions. The skill stack required are performance testing knowledge, JMeter, LoadRunner or any performance testing tool. Okay, uh, these are interview questions which can vary from 3 to 6 plus years of experience and can be even as to 8 to 10 plus years of experience. Okay, so let's get started. These are the core performance testing interview questions that you should be aware of irrespective of the tool. What is performance testing? What are the different types of performance testing? What is the difference between load testing, stress testing, spike testing, endurance testing? And what is the throughput, response time, latency, hits per second? And what are SLA, SLO and SLA breach scenarios? What is baseline testing? What is bottleneck? How do you identify it? Difference between concurrency versus parallel users. What is think time versus pacing? These are some of the core performance testing interview questions. So now let's discuss the specific to tool interview questions specific to JMeter tool. So let's get started. What is Apache JMeter? Explain thread group in JMeter. And what are samplers, listeners and config elements? Difference between timers versus string time. What is correlation in JMeter? How do you handle dynamic values? What is parameterization in JMeter? How do you run JMeter in non-GUI mode? How do you design a test plan for 10,000 users? How do you identify memory leaks using JMeter results? What is distributed testing in JMeter? How do you identify how do you integrate JMeter with CI/CD tools like Jenkins? What is the throughput controller or constant throughput timer? And how do you analyze aggregate report versus summary report? Now let's jump into the LoadRunner specific interview questions. What is micro focus LoadRunner? Why it is used for? And explain the LoadRunner architecture if you are aware of. What are VUgen, controller and analysis? What is VUser and what are the types of VUsers? Sorry if I am pronouncing it as wrong. In different project they call using a different naming convention. Let's jump into the next question. What is rendezvous point? What is transaction in LoadRunner? How do you perform correlation in LoadRunner? What is parameterization and why it is important? How do you handle dynamic values in scripts? What are the checkpoints and validations? How do you analyze graphs and LoadRunner analysis? What is runtime settings tuning? Now let's jump into the scenario based interview questions. Your application crashes at 500 users instead of 2000. How will you debug? What is the response time suddenly increased after the deployment? What steps you will take? How do you identify whether issue is in DB or network or application layer? How do you handle server errors like 500 or 500 series in performance tests? How do you decide load distribution across the multiple servers? What metrics will you monitor in performance testing? The next set of interview questions are based on monitoring and analysis based questions. What tools do you use for monitoring? How do you read heap memory and GC logs? What is application performance monitoring? Do you have any experience with tools like Dynatrace, AppDynamics, New Relic? How do you perform API testing using JMeter? Difference between UI versus API performance testing? How do you validate JSON or XML responses? What is correlation in REST APIs? Why JMeter when LoadRunner already exists? JMeter limitations versus LoadRunner advantages? And can JMeter handle enterprise level load? How do you simulate real user behavior? What happens if think time is removed? Okay, guys, do remember that you focus on real-time diff scenarios and you are not just mugging up the definitions. Try to answer them practically. Okay, Answers for all these questions and ultimate end-to-end QA mastery kit with complete job preparation system has been prepared, and I have provided the link in the description box. Please go through it. You'll get answers for all the given questions, and also you will be able to crack any interviews with respect to full stack QA. Okay, thank you so much for watching my video. All the best.